Okay, we're back talking about Autobiography of a Yogi once again. This is a classic of world spirituality literature, one of the great books on spirituality, definitely of the 20th century. I've been, in my last video, I was talking about mainly about Hinduism and Christianity. And I read, I'm going to read it again right now, one of the aims and ideals of self-realization fellowship. And here it is. This is one of them. To reveal the complete harmony and basic oneness of original Christianity as taught by Jesus Christ and original yoga as taught by Bhagavan Krishna, and to show that these principles of truth are the common scientific foundation of all true religions. Okay, so we're assuming that obviously Yogananda quotes from the Gospels throughout Autobiography of a Yogi. In my last video, I raised the question of, did he believe that the Gospels are the gospel truth? Did he believe that everything in the Gospels actually happened, that Jesus did all of the miracles and all the stories in there are literally true? And you could also ask, did he believe that the Bhagavad Gita is literally true? Does he think that the Bhagavad Gita is word for word the word of God? And was that really Krishna speaking to Arjuna and talking to him all about yoga, the deeper meaning of yoga? One definition that Krishna gives of yoga in chapter 2 of the Gita is samatvam. Samatvam meaning yoga uchate samatvam, if I'm not mistaken in my memory there. But samatvam is equanimity, that yoga is getting to this place beyond duality, where the dualities of life no longer affect you, and you are living in that oneness. So one of my questions in reading Autobiography of a Yogi again was, what is Yogananda's ultimate understanding? Is he an Advaitin? Ultimately, that was my question. And what is an Advaitin? An Advaitin is someone who follows Advaita Vedanta, which is Advaita meaning non-dualism, non-dualist philosophy. And its greatest proponent was this figure named Shankara, or Adi Shankara, or Adi Shankaracharya. No one really knows when he lived. Let me see. I gotta find this now. I'm gonna look it up while I'm talking. No one really knows when he lived, and Yogananda even makes a note to that effect in the book that people are there's a debate about. He probably lived around the 6th century CE. But what Shankara did, he did many things. He lived a very short life. He was only 32 when he died, but he wrote prolifically, and he basically was the founder of the 10 systems, or 10, what is it, basically the monks, the sadhus in India all are classified according to these 10 groupings. And he established spots or maths in the 4 corners of India. north, south, east, west, to this day. And there are Shankaracharyas to this day that are, part of this lineage. I don't really know. I'm not a scholar in this subject. I don't know how it really works. I know about Shankara. I know that Shankara was probably the greatest proponent of Advaita Vedanta. And he was actually not only the greatest, but he was also, seems to be the one that really took what had been written earlier, like in the Upanishads, the Bhagavad Gita, maybe also the Yoga Sutras, and he brought it all together and made it, and showed that the Upanishads really were they were pointing to Advaita Vedanta, which is non-duality. And Shankara's great quote was, Brahman alone is real, the world is unreal. Right? I forget the exact line. Brahman Satyam Jagat Mithya, something like that, right? Brahman alone is real, and the world is unreal. So let me, and on page 109 in Autobiography of a Yogi, Yogananda has a very extensive footnote about Shankara. He calls him India's greatest philosopher. And he mentions that he was a monist. And the monism is what scholars used to refer to this idea that God alone is real, everything else is unreal and is under the delusion of Maya, the veil of illusion, right? We don't see God, we don't know God, our true reality, because of Maya. But we are able to, if we do put in the practice and prepare our minds, we can realize that reality. That would be self-realization. It seems fairly clear that Yogananda is praising Shankara to the highest here, and putting, saying Advaita Vedanta is, and there's another note that I noticed at the end, at the chapter on the resurrection of Sri Yukteswar, where he also mentions again Advaita and Shankara. So in a glowing way, to praise that philosophy. Now, I say that because there were two other main schools in the Vedanta philosophical system that came a little later after Shankara, and that was Vishtadvaita and Dvaita. So qualified non-dualism and dualism. I'm not going to go into those two. There have been others that talked about that. Maybe in another video I will. But I just really want to mainly focus on Advaita here. And I want to just bring it to the fore because we started talking about this book as well. Course in Miracles. Course in Miracles is, some say, and I believe it's probably true as well. It seems from my reading as well that this is true, that A Course in Miracles is presenting Advaita Vedanta, but a form of non-dualism. Maybe not the exact same as what Shankara presented, maybe not the exact same as other presentations of Advaita. Certainly, A Course in Miracles speaks in dualistic language, and oftentimes use dualistic language, making it seem sometimes as if God has a body or God is just a big personage. Basically anthropomorphizing God, making God in human terms. But on a deeper level, on a more absolute level, and in certain places in the Course, it's clear that there is this perfect oneness, and God is the only reality, and that the world is the product of the ego and is not real. And the Course doesn't use the word Maya, but it does use the word illusion quite often, illusion and delusion. And those are words that you find also a lot if you just read the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is talking about illusion and delusion all over the place in the Bhagavad Gita. So much so that some have questioned, clearly whoever it was, whether it was Jesus or whoever it was that was coming through Helen Schuckman, the little old lady who scribed this course, whoever that was seemed to be aware of quite a few older sources, including the Bhagavad Gita. It seems almost clear that was very aware of the Bhagavad Gita. So much so that I even, sometimes it's a crazy thought, but sometimes I think maybe Yogananda was coming through Helen. Please forgive me for saying that, but it doesn't really matter whether it was Yogananda, whether it was Jesus. A Course in Miracles is like a brilliant merging of East and West, of Eastern philosophy with Christianity. And so much so that Bill Thetford, who was Helen's co-scribe for A Course in Miracles, Dr. William Thetford, he once said the Course is Christian Vedanta. He used that term, Christian Vedanta. It's not really Christian and it's not really Vedanta, but it's like a merging of the two together. And I mentioned that one thing that we take now that is very much a part of Christianity to this day is this kind of glorification and idolization. Maybe idolization is not the right word, but deification of Jesus, in the sense putting him up on a pedestal and almost, obviously for some people, worshiping him. And in the Course, Jesus in the Course says, do not worship me. That is only appropriate for God, not for me, and not for anyone else. Don't deify anyone. Don't apotheosize anyone. That's only appropriate for God. And the reality, though, is that when you realize God, you realize that you are one with God. Right? You realize your inherent oneness, unity, divinity. And there is no you to realize. Maybe there is. Maybe on some level there is a you to realize that. But the point is that you can realize that even here in this world, you can have that realization. Although the realization itself might take you out of the world, but you'll come back and you'll still retain the memory of that realization. So the point I'm trying to make is that, as the Course says, every good teacher wants to give everything to the student so that the student becomes like the teacher. And in fundamentalist Christianity, we don't seem to have that idea. We have more of the idea that we are down here. Jesus is way up here. Jesus is the only Son of God. We can only get to God through Jesus. And we cannot be like Jesus. Far be it for us to even think that we can attain that same level of realization as Jesus. The Course and Yogananda are saying that we are able to, because we are all just like Jesus. If Jesus was a man, if you look at the Gospels themselves, obviously Jesus did certain things. He fasted, he prayed, he went out into the wilderness, right? He went on retreat. He did things, even according to the Gospels, that seem to suggest that he got closer to God through doing those things. And the Course and Yogananda are just saying basically the same thing. That there is a journey to go on, right? There are practices, and some practices might save you time. That's why I brought up that thing in Autobiography of Yogi, where Yogananda talks about shortcuts, and he mentions that Yukteswar said that there are shortcuts. There are things that can save time-saving devices that were discovered to help people to get closer sooner. But you either have to have faith that it's going to work, or it might take quite a bit of work for you to do that thing. For example, I believe personally that plant medicine can be a great tool and assistant on the way to self-realization. It can quicken the process, but you have to be willing to face your fears. So in a way, it's not really, it's a shortcut, but it's not a shortcut. Anyway, I'm going to stop there, and I'll say more soon. Thank you.